Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be getting ready for fall and we're going to go through my spooky TBR. I wanted to give you guys a list of books that I am considering reading for fall, for spooky season. These include some mystery thrillers, some horror novels. I also am going to include some darker books along with some lighter books, as well as some new releases and some older releases. So a little bit for everybody. So if you're not a scary, spooky reader, but you still like to read fall reads, I've got something in there for you. And if you're someone who really likes the creepy horror books, I have something for you too. So let's get started. We will start with 5 new releases that I have for you guys, starting with The Coworker. So this book is by Freida McFadden, who I have heard from numerous people has an amazing backlist. This, I believe, is her new release. It's on my new releases list. So this is her 2023 release. I'm not sure how many books she releases a year. I just recently read The Locked Door from her and really enjoyed that book. And so I wanted to give her another try. This book follows a woman who is a little awkward and insistent on being consistent at work. I think the synopsis said something about how she's always at her desk at 8:45. She doesn't have very many friends, and one day she doesn't show up for work. And so there are some people that think it's odd because she's not at work. And so one of her coworkers goes looking for her and finds some sinister things involved. And that's all I know. I tend not to read the full synopsis of thrillers because they do tend to have spoilers in it. So that's all I've read for this. But yeah, I'm intrigued. I should say that the first 3 books that I'm going to mention, so The Coworker and then the next 2 are darker new releases. I will also have a section for lighter new releases, and then I'll have darker old releases and lighter old releases. So anyway, the next book that I have for you guys is How Can I Help You? This was recommended by Michaela at Michaela Reads, and I am super hyped for this book. It's about 2 librarians, one of which used to be, I think, a nurse, and specifically she was a nurse, and I don't know if she killed people or if she just had dark inclinations, and so that's why she left the practice. And then she ends up going to work for this library, and then things go down at the library, and the other librarian that works with her ends up investigating some of the things that have gone down and finds out some sordid past. I don't know, it sounds fantastic. Michaela, I believe, gave it 5 stars. I saw it scrolling today on Goodreads. I saw her review, and it seemed like she loved it, and so I'm really excited to get to this one. Next is a book that I talked about in my September TBR, and that is Wild Spaces. This is a horror novel. I am just assuming that it's on the darker side of things. Just because it's horror, but I guess it could be. I got this at the library today. It is super, super tiny. I think it's like 120 pages. I didn't realize it was that small. But I talked about, like I said, I talked about this on my September TBR. It's about a young boy, coming of age story. His estranged grandfather shows up and weird things start happening to him. As far as my lighter side of things, for new releases, I am reading The Murder Wheel. I also talked about this on my September TBR. This is a buddy read with Leandra. This is the second book in the Joseph Spector series, and so if you guys haven't read Death and the Conjurer, this is a series that you could pick up. The Murder Wheel is the second in the series. This follows a magician who helps solve murders. This book specifically is about a murder on a Ferris wheel, hence Murder Wheel, and I know that Joseph Spector gets involved somehow. I didn't read the synopsis to this. I just know that I'm going to love it because I liked the first one. Joseph Spector is a really interesting character because not only is he a magician, and they bring in some like old school magician tricks, he also, because of how kind of eccentric his character is, he does a really good job throughout the book of laying out clues for you. And explaining like his reasoning and why he thinks certain ways, and I really enjoyed that aspect. There was even a section at the end of the book that like laid out everything and was like, okay, now this is your last chance to figure it out on your own, and then we're going to figure it out together, which I don't know, I've never read a book that does that. I really enjoyed it. The last new release that I have for you guys, also on the lighter side, is Mother-Daughter Murder Night. This book was also recommended by Michaela over at Michaela Reads, and I'm not sure if she's read this one yet, or if this was just on her anticipated releases. I'm not sure about that. But this, if you read the synopsis, all I read was the first line, which essentially said, Gilmore Girls with murder. And sign me up, I'm there. I'm really excited about this. I know that it's about a grandmother, mother, and daughter trio, and they apparently solve murders together. And so I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. The next 5 books are older releases, meaning that they were released prior to 2023. The first was a recommendation that I got from Amy at Booktube with Amy, and this is Maggie's Grave. This is also an indie published book, I believe. And Maggie's Grave, Amy also recently interviewed this author on her channel. You guys should go and check out that video. It was really good. Anyway, so this book is about essentially a town that has died. There's not very many people left. I think there's like 40 some people left, and it's in the shadow of a mountain, at the top of the mountain, or like, I don't know if it's within the village or at the top of the mountain, but there is a woman named Maggie who is buried, and it says Maggie was buried as a witch. And the synopsis said, and some people don't want to stay dead. The cover looks super creepy, so I am saying that this is on the darker side of things. I'll get to my lighter reads in just a minute. So I'm assuming that this is going to be on the darker side of things. This is a horror novel. But yeah, a lot of this author, I'm not going to remember his last name. I think his first name is David Anyway, you can see the title on the screen. I also want to read, I think it's called The Horror by the same author. But this is the first one that I'm going to try out. The next book that I have for you guys is Mary. This is another dark horror novel. This book I've wanted to read since last year. It was released in 2022. And first off, I do think the cover's kind of creepy. This is about a woman who I believe is retirement age, maybe. And I know she's going through hot flashes. She's having like some changes to her body, but then some weird things start happening. She starts having visions. She finds out that the visions she's having were like past murders from some serial killer. And then people start dying again. And I don't know, it sounds crazy. It sounds really dark. It sounds psychological. I'm excited to get to this one. The last 3 older releases are lighter reads, the first of which is Small Spaces. This, I believe, was recommended to me by Leandra, but I've seen it in a whole bunch of people's YouTube videos, so I think it's pretty popular. This is a middle grade horror series, and the synopsis talks about how, I believe it's a young girl walking through the woods, sees someone about to throw a book in the river, and so she steals the book and runs away, and then when she reads the book has some ominous things going on in it. That's really all I know. I've never read, oh, I guess that's not true. Do you consider the Graveyard Book horror? I don't think I've ever read a horror middle grade, but unless you consider the Graveyard Book horror, which I don't know that I do. But anyway, I think that this will be a good time, and like I said, a lighter read. I like darker reads, but I also feel like I almost need a palate cleanser. And so that's kind of one of the reasons that I put a middle grade on this list, because I feel like sometimes if I read really scary book after really scary book after really scary book, I almost get like desensitized to it. Whereas if I read a really scary book and have kind of like a nice cozy read, and then I read a scary book, I think that it does more for me. The next book on my list is actually my first Agatha Christie. So Agatha Christie has always been an author that I've wanted to pick up, but I don't know. I've always been nervous too. I didn't know where to start. She has a ton of books out there, and I just didn't know. So Leandra was kind enough to give me some recommendations on where she thinks I should start with Agatha Christie's with Agatha Christie's backlist, and her debut novel came up. So I'm going to read The Mysterious Affair at Styles. I know that this is because it's her debut, and also just because it's so early in her career. This is her first Poirot novel, I think is how you pronounce the detective's last name. And I don't really know much about it other than that. I have it on my Kindle right now, so it'll be my next e-read. So I'll be reading it before I go to bed at night. And yeah, I'm happy that I'm finally going to get to an Agatha Christie. I hope I love it. And I know that it's going to be on the lighter side of things, but I still feel like mystery, even if they're cozy mysteries, are fun fall reads. Speaking of cozy mystery, is my last recommendation for older releases for you guys is A Quiet Life in the Country. I believe it was Nicole from Dusty Book Sniffers that recommended this, but I know that there's been a lot of other people that have mentioned this as well. This follows a retired woman, I believe in the 1930s. I don't know that I have the time correct, but it follows her and then her housemaid. And she is retired. Her housemaid has some martial arts background, and they are supposed to be, you know, enjoying retirement and kind of relaxing in the countryside. But of course, murder ensues and they have to investigate because the police have it all wrong. And it just sounds like fun antics. And like I said, I enjoy having a little bit of fun, cozy reads along with the scary, horrible reads. And so I think that this will be a really fun time. I did not put these on my spooky TBR, but I do feel like I have to mention my Lovecraft collection that I got. So I purchased this. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to pick up the actual titles to these, but I purchased this year. It was at a half-price bookstore, and I've never read any Lovecraft, but I know that his works inspired a lot of horror novels, and if I'm going to get into horror, I just feel like I should read some of the classics as well. So I do plan on picking up at least one of these during the fall. I'm not sure which one it will be, but yeah. So that is it for my spooky TBR. I'm sure I will have more editions as fall goes on and people start talking about what they're reading. Speaking of which, if you guys have any horror reads or mystery thrillers or cozy mystery that you are excited to get to this fall, leave them in the comments down below. I would love to add to my list, even if I can't get to them this year. I just love having a list of fall reads that I can get to throughout the year if I'm missing fall or next fall when the time comes. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.